Good morning, everyone. Once again, this is Black Forex coming to you with another market analysis, a currency pair analysis. This morning, we're going to be looking at the British pound USD. But before we get started to break down this currency pair and this chart, we have to say that this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice, but we all know why you guys are here. You guys are here to find good, credible Forex content that can help improve your ability as a trader and to help put some extra money into your pocket. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this currency pair and into this chart. Okay. Now, before we get to talking about what's physically happening on the chart, which is a technical analysis, let's talk about the fundamental analysis of each respective currency. Okay. Now, let's talk about the British pound first. Now, the British pound did have some overall positive news come out about it last night, around between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. We did have some positive news come out about the British pound last night, but that news is kind of being overshadowed by the anticipation of more sanctions against Russia. Okay. Now it looks like England and the entire EU are going to institute more economic sanctions against Russia. And these economic sanctions against Russia have been having kind of a negative reversal effect on them. So every time they institute sanctions against Russia, it seems to hurt their economy more so than it hurts the Russian economy. But nevertheless, they seem like they're very gun ho on doing this. So as long as they institute these sanctions, we will see a continuing weakening of the British pound, despite how good the economic, fundamental economic news coming out about what's happening with its economy is. Okay. Then on top of that, there is a lot of FUD surrounding the entire European continent's economy due to the overall destabilization that is caused by the European conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Okay. And being that the British pound is one of the major three currencies of Europe, which is the British pound, the CHF, and the euro, is going to be affected by the overall FUD surrounding the entire European continent's economy as well. Okay. So we will continue to see a weakening of it until we start to see some resolution into it. We're going into almost like 43 to 40, it's almost like 42 to 43 days of continued fighting now. So until we get some type of ceasefire, ceasing hostility, or some type of treaty, we're going to continue to have a weakening of the European currencies as a whole. That's going to be catalyzed by, it's going to be catalyzed by more news of sanctions or actual sanctions that's coming out. Okay, so until we can get some overall peace in Europe, and then once that peace starts to happen in Europe, the European nations can start to fix the economic woes dealing with their economies. We're not going to see a strengthening of the respective European currencies anytime soon. Okay, so with that being said, now let's talk about the USD. The USD had some moderately negative news come out about it yesterday during yesterday's New York session. And so basically, we're in a situation where USD is right in the middle. We do have a lot of economic news about the USD coming out after 8:30. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. If this news, if this USD news is more positive than negative, or positive overall, and we see a continuation, and we also see a drop in gas prices, then we will see a strengthening of the US dollar. If this overall news is more negative than positive, or negative overall with an uptake in oil prices, then we will see a weakening US dollar. Okay, so we'll have a clear direction on what the USD is going to do sometime after 10 o'clock. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and break down this currency pair. Okay. So, since the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we've been having a drop in price, drop in price, drop in price. Then we had some initial picks up. Now we also continuation to have a drop in price, initial pickup. So now basically we're at this point here where we're kind of just ranging out. Okay. So what can happen here is we can have a push up to this area here before we have another drop down. But if we do get a strengthening of the US dollar, you can definitely continue to see a range and a drop down. Okay. Now, if they come out with these sanctions and start to release these sanctions sometime today or tomorrow, we will see a weakening of the British pound, and we can start to see range, and this will drop down. We could see a push up to possibly here or even here, and then once they drop those sanctions, do have a push down. So, like I've said before, it looks like we're just going to be ranging between this area here. Let me pull up some lines so you guys can better yet see. Looks like we're going to be ranging between this area here and this area here. Basically, for it looks like we're just going to be ranging, bouncing between these two price areas. So every time we get as high as this area here, price comes down. Every time we get as low as this area here, price is going to continue to come up, with this being the lower extreme of the range and this being the upper extreme of the range. Okay, so this looks like we're going to be bouncing between these price areas here for some time till we can get some decision on what's going to happen. If we start to see a strengthening of the U.S. dollar, we are going to see a definite drop in price. If we start to see a weakening of the continuation of the weakening of the British pound due to geopolitical events outside of its own economic fundamentals that dictates the strength or weakness of its currency, then we also will continue to see a push down. Only way we will probably see a push up is if the US dollar becomes very, very weak, and then also we all of a sudden overnight at a snap of a finger we got peace in Europe, and then we got the British government, the UK government on top of getting the economic woes together. Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it probable? Not too likely, because economic policies takes weeks to kind of get good and put together when you're dealing with governments. Okay, and especially with going on with this Ukrainian Russian war, it's looking like it's getting a lot more aggressive and hostile than it did in the past few fighting days. So we're gonna have to look and see how this plays out. Okay, so once again, looks like that we're going to be bouncing between this area here. Every time we get as high as here, we're going to be going down. Every time we get as low as here, we're going to go up. And we'll probably have periodic breaks where we will get as high as here, then come back down, or get as low as here and come back up. But if we see a strengthening of the US dollar, we will continue to see a push down, a diagonal push down. If we start to see British pound becoming much more weaker due to the negative effect of the sanctions on Russia, then we're going to also continue to see a push down. Hope this information was helpful for you guys. Happy trading.